Professor Michael Davies was an enigma. Tall, with a frame that hinted at a life spent outdoors, his silver hair was a contrast to the youthful energy that radiated from him. His lectures on 19th century literature were legendary. His voice a mesmerizing blend of passion and erudition that could captivate even the most jaded student. Ryan, was one of his biggest admirers. I devoured his every word, hung on his every gesture. He was an intellectual giant, a beacon of knowledge in a sea of mediocrity. I never imagined that my admiration would evolve into something more, something forbidden and exhilarating. It began with a late-night study session at the library, a shared coffee, a lingering gaze. I found myself drawn to him, captivated by his sharp wit, his insightful observations, the way his eyes crinkled at the corners when he smiled. He, too, seemed to take a particular interest in me. He would linger after class, asking me about my opinions on a particular poem, engaging me in stimulating debates that stretched far beyond the confines of academia. I thrived on his attention, basking in the warmth of his intellect, the intoxicating scent of his cologne. One rainy afternoon, after a particularly intense lecture on the Romantics, I found myself alone with him in his office. The rain lashed against the windows, creating a sense of intimacy, a world unto itself. "You have a unique perspective, Ryan," he said, his voice low and husky, his gaze lingering on my face. A refreshing breath of fresh air in this stale academic environment. I felt a blush creep up my neck. "Thank you, Professor," I stammered, my voice betraying my nervousness. He smiled, a slow, appreciative smile that sent shivers down my spine. "Please," he said, "call me Michael." The air crackled with unspoken possibilities. I felt a surge of adrenaline, a mixture of excitement and trepidation. This was dangerous territory, a forbidden path that I knew I shouldn't tread. But the allure of Michael, the intoxicating scent of his cologne, the way his eyes held mine captive, proved too strong to resist. "Michael," I echoed, my voice barely a whisper. He leaned closer, his gaze intense, his eyes searching mine. "You know," he said, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper, "these late-night study sessions are becoming distracting." My heart pounded against my ribs. "Distracting?" I whispered back, my voice trembling. He reached out, his hand brushing against mine, sending a jolt of electricity through me. "Yes," he murmured, his voice husky. "Very distracting." His hand moved slowly, tracing the outline of my palm. I felt a wave of heat wash over me, my senses heightened, my body responding to his touch. I wanted to pull away, to assert my boundaries, but my body seemed to betray me. I leaned into his touch, my eyes drawn to his lips, his strong jawline, the silver flecks in his hair. He saw the desire in my eyes, the unspoken yearning that mirrored his own. His gaze dropped to my lips, a predatory glint in his eyes. "Do you want this, Ryan?" he whispered, his voice rough with barely suppressed desire. I closed my eyes, burying my face in his chest. "Yes," I murmured, the word barely audible. "Yes, Michael." His arms tightened around me, pulling me closer. He tasted like old books and expensive whiskey, a heady mix that intoxicated me. His hands roamed over my body, exploring the contours of my muscles, sending shivers of pleasure down my spine. We made love that afternoon, a passionate, desperate exploration of forbidden desires. We ripped each other's clothes off, the air thick with anticipation. Hands moved quickly, exploring, pushing, pulling. We were both desperate, urgent. I felt his hands everywhere, rough and demanding. I arched against him, moaning as he found the sweet spot. The world narrowed down to just us, the feel of his skin against mine, the raw, primal need that consumed us both. We were a mess of limbs and sweat, lost in the heat of the moment. The rain continued to lash against the windows, a fitting soundtrack to our illicit encounter. We were lost in the moment, consumed by the raw, primal passion that surged between us. The aftermath was a whirlwind of emotions. Guilt, exhilaration, fear, and an intoxicating sense of liberation. I had crossed a line that I knew I shouldn't have crossed. But the experience had been exhilarating. Michael, ever the pragmatist, assured me that it would remain our little secret. "This is just between us," he whispered, his eyes filled with a mixture of regret and desire. A shared indulgence. Nothing more. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe that this was a one-time thing, a fleeting moment of passion that would soon fade into a distant memory. But as the days turned into weeks, I found myself craving his touch, his gaze, the intoxicating scent of his cologne. He, too, seemed to be struggling to resist the pull of our illicit affair. He would find excuses to be near me, lingering after class, seeking me out at the library, his eyes always searching mine, conveying a silent message of desire. One evening, as we were walking through the park, the setting sun casting long shadows across the path, Michael stopped and turned to me, his eyes intense. "I can't stay away from you, Ryan," he confessed, his voice rough with emotion. "I crave you." I felt a surge of adrenaline, a mixture of fear and excitement. "Me too," I admitted. He pulled me close, his arms wrapping around me in a comforting embrace. "This is dangerous," he murmured, his voice a low growl. "We could lose everything." "I know," I whispered, my heart pounding against his chest. "But it's worth it, isn't it?" He slammed his mouth onto mine, a hard, demanding kiss that took my breath away. I gasped, my head thrown back as he devoured my lips. His tongue thrust into my mouth, exploring, dominating. It was a kiss that wasn't about tenderness, but about pure, unbridled lust. I felt a jolt, a surge of adrenaline, as his hands tightened around me, pulling me closer. Our relationship continued in secret, a dangerous game of cat and mouse played out against the backdrop of the university. We would meet in secluded corners of the library, steal moments of passion in his office, whisper sweet nothings during late-night phone calls. But the fear of discovery loomed over us. The whispers started to circulate among the students, fueled by gossip. I overheard snippets of conversations, their words laced with suspicion and disapproval. One day, while I was walking across campus, I overheard a group of students gossiping about Michael. "He's been acting strange lately," one of them hissed, her voice dripping with venom. "All that time he spends with that new kid. I wouldn't be surprised if something improper was going on." The word struck me like a physical blow. I felt a wave of nausea wash over me, my face burning with shame. I fled the scene, my heart pounding in my chest, my mind racing. That night, I confronted Michael. "They're talking about us," I said, my voice trembling. "They know." Michael's face hardened. "Who knows?" he demanded, his eyes flashing with anger. "Who's been spreading these lies?" "I don't know," I admitted. "But they're talking. Everyone is talking." Michael pulled me close, his arms wrapping around me in a comforting embrace. "Don't listen to them," he murmured, his voice a low growl. "They don't know anything. They're just jealous." But his words offered little comfort. The gossips grew louder, more insistent. The students exchanged furtive glances, their eyes filled with suspicion and disapproval. I felt like a caged animal, watched and judged by every eye. The pressure mounted, threatening to tear us apart. Michael, once so confident, became withdrawn, haunted by the fear of discovery. I, in turn, became increasingly anxious, my sleep plagued by nightmares of exposure and rejection. One evening, as we were sitting in his office, the silence between us heavy with unspoken fears, Michael spoke. "We can't keep living like this," he said, his voice heavy with regret. "It's not fair to you. You deserve better." I looked at him, my heart aching. "What are you saying, Michael?" He took a deep breath, his eyes fixed on the floor. "I think we should separate. For now. Until things calm down." The words hit me like a physical blow. "Separate?" I echoed, my voice choked with disbelief. "But what about us? What about what we have?" Michael looked at me, his eyes filled with a pain that mirrored my own. "I know," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "But it's for the best. For both of us." And so, we parted ways. I avoided his classes. I stayed away from the places we used to frequent. I tried to erase him from my memory. But the memory of his touch, the taste of his lips, the intoxicating scent of his cologne, haunted me. One day, I received an email from Michael. It was a simple email, a few lines scrawled on the screen. "I'm leaving the university," he wrote. "I can't stay here anymore. The memories are too painful." My heart sank. I knew that this was goodbye. Michael, ever the enigmatic figure, would disappear from my life, leaving behind only the echoes of a love that was never meant to be. I never saw him again. He vanished without a trace, leaving behind only the memories of our time together, a bittersweet reminder of a love that was both forbidden and unforgettable. Years passed. I graduated from college, built a successful career, and found love with someone else. But the memory of Michael, the forbidden love, the stolen moments of passion, remained etched in my soul. It was a secret I carried with me, a ghost of a love that could never be. And sometimes, late at night, when the world was quiet and the stars shone brightly, I would think of Michael, wondering where he was, what he was doing, if he ever thought of me. Sometimes, years later, I would find myself walking down a familiar street, a particular scent, a fleeting melody, triggering a flood of memories. I would see a glimpse of someone who reminded me of him. The same silver hair, the same piercing blue eyes, the same way of moving with a quiet grace. The memories would come rushing back. The rain-lashed windows of his office, the feel of his hand on my skin, the intoxicating scent of his cologne. The pain of our separation would resurface, a sharp, aching reminder of what could have been. But with time, the pain began to soften, the edges to blur. I learned to cherish the memories, to acknowledge the profound impact he had on my life. He had awakened a part of me I never knew existed, a part that craved passion, adventure, and a love that defied convention. He had taught me about the beauty of forbidden desires, the intoxicating thrill of the unknown, the enduring power of human connection. And though our love story had ended tragically, it had left an indelible mark on my soul, a reminder that life is too short to live in the shadows. One day, while browsing an online bookstore, I stumbled upon a rare edition of a book we had discussed during one of our late-night study sessions. As I held the book in my hands, the memories came flooding back. The hushed tones of his voice, the way his eyes would light up when he spoke about his favorite authors. A strange sense of peace washed over me. I realized that while the pain of our separation might never completely fade, I could finally begin to heal. I could learn to cherish the memories, not as a source of regret, but as a testament to the power of human connection, the beauty of forbidden love, and the enduring strength of the human spirit.